All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. So the Detroit Lions are coming off a phenomenal season. They reached the NFC Championship game. They won the NFC North. They won 12 regular season games. They won a couple of playoff games. They've had a top 5 offense in the NFL for the last 2 seasons now. But I think we can agree that defense, while it is very young, you got rookies like Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, you've got youngsters in Aiden Hutchinson, Kirby Joseph. These guys are improving. I think we all kind of know that if this team does decide to address free agency money-wise, it's going to be defensively. So I have a couple of hypotheticals here, and this is where I want to hear from my Lions fans. I've seen L'Jarius Sneed floated out there. I actually just saw Pat Surtain trade hypothetical. I just read a mock draft where pick number 29, the Detroit Lions decide to go with the cornerback out of Iowa and Cooper DeJean. You've got a lot of possibilities, right? And you're looking at about $50 million in cap space. Now, they do have a young, intriguing secondary room, specifically in the safety with guys like Kirby Joseph, Melifonu's late season, and just unbelievable ascension he had. You've got Brian Branch, obviously. CJ Gardner-Johnson's hitting free agency, but he only played, 3 games for the Lions this season. I would imagine Detroit should be able to easily re-sign him on a fairly fine budget, right? But defensively, statistically, they were a bottom 5 pass defense. They were a good rush defense. We'll talk about that as well. But bottom 5 pass defense in the league. And it was just kind of the thorn in their ass, right? So that's what we're going to talk about in tonight's video. But before we do, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. Lions fans, if you could try and get this video to 250 likes, that would mean the absolute world to me. You guys have rode with me for 2 straight seasons now. I appreciate you guys so much. We got a ton of fun stuff coming this offseason. So I was reading an article, I think it was Bleacher Report, and they were talking about a L'Jarius Sneed potential. And when I look at a guy like L'Jarius Sneed, I absolutely love it. You know, in 2023, the year before that, in 2022, 108 total tackles. This past season, he allowed just 51% of the passes thrown in his direction to be completed with a passer rating of just 56.2. So L'Jarius Sneed, 27 years old, the dude's a stud. You'd be able to sign him probably on a 3-year, $54 million contract, something along those lines. But the point is more so this, that I'm curious with my Lions fans. Do you want them to go out there and sign a big-time cornerback, or would you rather, address it in the draft and with smaller moves in free agency, not necessarily like your Cam Sutton moves, but more of your like Emmanuel Mosley? We do have to keep in mind, man, the Detroit Lions secondary on paper, although it was very young, it's got a ton of talent, just a ton of talent. But you do have to keep in mind injuries, and especially in the cornerback room, you can never have too many cornerbacks. So L'Jarius Sneed, I think, would be a very good fit. I think he would certainly elevate this roster. And more importantly, when you get into these playoff games and you get into these NFC Championship games, you need star level players. You need guys to just make plays. And the Detroit Lions defense actually did a really good job, specifically with the pass rush, guys like Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil. They did a really good job of making plays, but that's why you go out there and you sign these CJ Gardner-Johnsons, right? To just get to that next level. You've got these star level players with championship level pedigrees like L'Jarius Sneed. Now, this next hypothetical I was not a fan of in any way, shape, or form. I'll just briefly mention it to kind of gauge my Lions fans' opinions of it. So it's Pat Surtain for this year's 29th pick, a 2025 first, and a 2025 fourth. Now, Pat Surtain is unarguably a top 5 cornerback in the league. You could certainly make the argument he's top 2 or top 1 in the NFL. But with that trade package, I don't think that's very beneficial for this Detroit Lions team. I would not suggest trading away 2 first-round draft picks, especially considering the way this organization has drafted in the last 2 years, and especially this past season. I have full faith that they, even if they don't go for a guy like L'Jarius Sneed, I have full faith that if they were to draft a Cooper DeJean, you would be able to turn him into, by the end of the season, fully competent. And he is, by the way, a fully competent cornerback at the college level. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about this Detroit Lions offseason. We're going to be talking about this at least a couple of times a week, especially up until free agency, which is like 3 weeks away. We got the draft a ways away. And we do have to keep in mind, the way they go throughout free agency is certainly going to dictate how they draft. But they do have some needs, right? The cornerback position is huge. They've got a couple of guys like Jonah Jackson hitting the free agency market. I'm still feeling pretty good. I would expect them to make some moves at the guard position in the draft, maybe some low budget, 1 year kind of signings in free agency if they do end up losing Jonah Jackson. But the guard position certainly something to look for, and the edge rushing. I don't know which route they're going to take. James Houston, I think, is an absolute animal. But we talked about this at the trade deadline last season, going for a guy like Brian Burns. We just made a couple of videos like Joey Bosa, which I don't think is in the Lions' best interest either. But it is a position to look into for sure, is the edge rusher. Because Aiden Hutchinson on his way, he's a star. Aiden Hutchinson's already a star in this league, and he's kind of elevating himself to superstar status, especially with the way he finished off the 2023 campaign. But those are like the Lions' biggest needs. Now, one kind of sneaky need I would be looking into is the wide receiver room. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a star receiver in this league as well. The dude got snubbed in the Pro Bowl. He had like 1,500 receiving yards. He tore it up in the postseason, in the playoffs. But the wide receiver room, you've got Josh Reynolds hitting free agency. I do think they're going to re-sign Josh Reynolds. And you obviously have 2022 first-round pick Jameson Williams. Now, JMO had a weird NFL career, just kind of an inconsistent career thus far. Obviously, tore his ACL 2 years ago in the championship game when he was in college at Alabama. And, in his rookie season, gets like the last, 6-7 games, has a couple of plays. We know he's got that big playability, and especially in that game against San Francisco to kick it off, like that dude is unbelievably fast. But, as we kind of saw, and obviously Sam Laporta. But the wide receiver room is not something, I'm not saying they're going to go out there and they're going to get a Mike Evans. They're certainly not going to do that. Even like a Tyler Boyd from the Cincinnati Bengals wouldn't shock me in the slightest. In fact, that's just kind of off the dome there. I kind of like that fit right there. But if they do resign Josh Reynolds, Amon-Ra St. Brown's probably going to get an extension rather sooner than later. Jameson Williams, I do think they will address this need in the draft. They made a midseason trade for DPJ, just kind of a depth move. We never really saw him. He certainly didn't make an impact on this Detroit Lions team, and he's hitting free agency. But I think the draft is a good place for Brad Holmes to find a sleeper. And it doesn't need to be a 1,000-yard receiver. It just needs to be, a competent player, a guy who's going to get you 400 to 600 receiving yards in his rookie season. And, God forbid Amon-Ra St. Brown ever got injured. Wide receiver, just like the cornerback room's kind of a positional group where you could never have enough of. So that's just kind of an off the dome, a couple of hypotheticals, trades, drafts, free agency for my Lions fans. Let me know your thoughts specifically on the Lions secondary down below in the comment section. And also let me know your thoughts on addressing a wide receiver, whether that's through free agency or in the draft. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, and have a great day. Peace.